Seen his mom fly out the...
Hey everybody, we're back for another episode of R&D. I'm Jerome Conover. We're joined today by Scott Calderon, who is typically our cameraman, Sam Gomez, and Justin Rogers. We're going to attempt to sit down and talk about Marvel's Netflix Defenders. So, yeah, it's not going well. Let's start off the conversation, though, by discussing some of the things that actually went well, the things that were good about the show. You know, I was to try to attempt to be objective and not fill our reviews with a bunch of complaining. So, what's the first thing you felt was good about the series?
But wait, are we going to get into spoilers, Len?
Yes. So, if you are not interested in hearing spoilers, hearing us discuss every detail about this show, don't watch this, because we're going to get right into the dirt.
Spoil it.
Meat and potatoes of everything.
Yep.
So, the thing that I first appreciated about this show was it redeemed Finn Jones as Danny Rand. I was like, all right, you're iron fisting a lot more than you did in the last season of your own stupid show. And so it seems like it was almost kind of a reboot, sweep under the table, kind of like, no, this is Danny Rand Iron Fist. He's only kind of sniveling a little bit. But he was a little better in the character development.
Yes,
so
sir.
I like that.
They definitely did a better. I appreciated that they gave Danny's character a bit of a purpose in the story, as he's the one who's kind of like, yes, we should be a team. This is our purpose, and this is what we should do.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other great things Danny's key. One of the greatest.
Iron key.
Yeah, key. One of the greatest things about this series, appreciated by some of us, is the fact that it was only 8 episodes.
I'm indifferent about that. I actually don't care one way or another. I didn't mind one of those episodes, but 8's fine too.
It's because you like anime and filler episodes.
I actually don't watch them anymore. It's been a little too long.
Did they get too long?
Stay on point.
Stay on target.
No, I felt like the pacing of the show was actually pretty good, because it didn't have that sort of. A lot of people were complaining that it was a slow burn at first, but I actually felt like the pacing was pretty decent. It moves along, and you don't really question it. A lot of the movement of the story did sort of feel organically like they got to where they were supposed to be. The other thing that we discussed is that we're happy that the show answered some of the questions that are lingering from each of the individual series from these characters.
Yes.
Who is the Chase? You found that out, and then they got wiped out just as quickly as you found them out.
Yes.
I was disappointed that it wasn't the bank, and I was upset.
Chase Bank.
Canceled my account.
We are the Chase.
Oh, man.
Enjoy your transaction today, sir.
Yeah,
or
no,
else.
they were just distributing credit, lines of credit.
But you're right. Yeah, it did answer a lot of like pickup questions, which was good. I mean, that's what was nice about the pace. Is at first I was concerned because I'm thinking halfway through. And then I started realizing it was a lot of the catch up. It's just, you had to see where everybody was and where they had been, and all the things that were kind of connected them to this point. So once it got there and it moved beyond that halfway point, I felt better. I felt like it made sense. It just felt like they took a movie and kind of chopped it into episodes. And I was like, okay, I see why they laid it out like this. So.
Exactly what me and Len talked about before the show premiered. Are they going to structure it like a movie, just more stretched out? So very concise.
Yeah. One of the other things. You have one more thing or no?
Yeah, to go with the kind of just thinking about it now, we didn't discuss it in our pre-meeting, where kind of like how The Defenders is the Netflix Avengers movie where everyone finally gets together. I feel that it weirdly brought things together a lot easier within the pacing in this show than kind of the Phase 1 movies did with Avengers, because they still didn't, in Avengers it just seemed like, oh, Loki's scepter, that's how reason why they're all there. Well, it's to me it weirdly seemed more natural, and like plot points of all those different shows made a little more sense once it got to the Defenders. While all the movies were all single, single stories that then kind of built to the Avengers.
I mean, that almost gets us into what the next point is, which is the character chemistry. One of the coolest things to see about the show was, yes, to finally see all of these characters in a room together, and I think they succeeded in sort of showing off, how these characters would get along with each other and what would happen when they have conversations. They got into some of the early ideas of Heroes for Hire and how Luke Cage and Danny Rand sort of get along together.
And so, in anyone's opinion, who had the best character interaction between two characters? Just between two. Any opinions?
That's tough.
I really liked Luke Cage and Danny Rand.
That's
Okay.
where I'm at.
Like, I mean, Jessica Jones interacting with almost everybody, just her being a snide such and such, was pretty good. But I mean, just knowing that, like, in the comic books, Iron Fist and Power Man are heroes for hire, and like just kind of like seeing the beginning of that, just their little banter, was pretty good. While like Luke Cage really just tries to be super grounded and it's like, you're making no sense. It seems like you're making this up.
Even though
Well,
he
Danny
forgets how extraordinary he himself is.
Right. While Danny Rand's just like, yeah, dude, I punched a dragon in the chest. It's like, what? You just a rich white boy. Like, what are you talking about? There's real shit going on.
Yeah.
But see, that's where also I kind of appreciate that they were putting Daredevil. Sorry, I'm gonna go with what he actually should have been called the entire series.
Not
Yes!
the devil. Not the devil.
Daredevil. Daredevil
Not the kitchen devil.
and Jessica Jones. They had a fair
like
amount
an
of decent
appliance.
interaction between the two of them,
Yeah.
and I felt like that made sense too because he was all, I don't know what I'm doing. My parents were killed in the alley while they were getting robbed, type of brooding thing. And she was more of like, shut up. Quit with your crap.
Stop your whining.
Yeah, stop it.
Give me a beer.
Stop your whining.
You're blind and you do parkour.
So,
Yeah, I was gonna say, that was one of the cool. It wasn't just Murdoch's interaction with her, but with everyone. Those constant moments of him going, "I hate you guys." I thought were some of the best moments of the thing, and then like the part at the end where they're all standing together about to go in the building, and Murdoch's put on the suit, and he's just like, "Yeah,
He's showing
I'm
off
back.
his gear.
I'm back to being me again. This is cool." Like that side shot was kind of funny
this
to
guy's
see.
jealous as fuck. Dude.
Yeah.
She's just looking at him like,
You still look like an asshole.
This guy's so smug. He's got his cool gear.
All right. I mean, the biggest point overall is that the plot of this series was. I'm having trouble saying this.
Okay.
The plot of the series was decent. It did sort of captivate you enough to keep watching and make it through the series. It didn't feel too slow, and I didn't feel like the plot itself, the overall arc of the story, was lacking. There were holes, which we'll get to later, but overall, it was pretty good. I mean, we were on the same page there, at least.
Mhm.
You're grinding your teeth.
there was a point A and B. That's the important part for the story. At least they had that part.
I wasn't constantly looking at my phone like, how much longer is
how long
this?
is this episode?
Like, and that's where the pacing also kicked in and was good for the show. Like, it was a simplistic enough plot. Like you did know who the good guys were, you did know who the bad guys were. It really wasn't like these guys are kind of bad. Like,
Even though they kept throwing out, we're really much the same speech several times.
yeah, we are the same.
That's true.
Except
They
for the
would
part-
save that for the what went wrong section.
Except for the part in the middle that we'll come back to about the whole Luke Cage white hat. So, that was the only kind of questionable part for a little bit until you kind of realize something.
Along the lines of the character chemistry, it was also good to see how well each of these characters had a purpose in the team. Jessica being sort of the sleuth doing the detective work behind the scenes. Murdoch being basically the team's radar. He sees things or hears things coming before they get there. What's up?
Nothing.
You're raising your
You
head.
mad about a scarf?
No, I was just trying to like physically mime what each their role is. Like radar. Get it?
Okay, so what's your physical mime for Luke Cage being the tank?
That's the tank.
And Danny Rand being. Okay, so
There you go.
He's the money. See, I don't think they did that.
But they didn't really
Yeah,
go
they
into him
could've-
having money.
Yeah.
You went a different way. I was going to go like this.
This branch just slid right in the club, man. What up, sock cuckers? And just started throwing money everywhere.
I'm dropping my superpower of privilege on you guys.
Oh,
shit.
no. Now, I want everybody to realize that the white guy in the room said that. Don't blame me.
This is my sleuth, though.
Yeah.
So, I think what happens actually is that Danny's purpose in the story is that he's the key. Right? He's basically what the story revolves around
The key master.
in a weird way. So he's the key master, right? Is that totally do that now?
I think someone's upset about our comments. Is that the studio coming down on us?
Yeah.
So anyway, not Danny, Daredevil.
Danny Tantrum.
Danny Devil.
Danny Tantrum.
Danny
No,
Devil.
Daredevil.
Research that. Internet.
Yeah, look
Research
that one
that.
up.
It's so I liked the fact that they finally called him Daredevil.
Yeah, not the Devil of Hell's Kitchen. Somebody
Oh,
actually
they
said
kinda-
Daredevil.
I don't
They kind of
recall.
kept slipping into that.
Yeah.
Who said it though? I don't recall.
So Karen called him Daredevil, and then even Jessica Jones and one other person.
I believe
called him.
Madame Gao said it at
Yeah.
one point.
Okay.
But so like Daredevil, even though that it's really hard to not do the comparisons, but Daredevil is pretty much for the Defenders. He is broke Batman. Like he's Batman with no money. He's the
He's Batman on a budget.
Yeah.
He's DIY Batman.
DIY Batman, dude.
Wait.
And so like
He's drunk Batman. Drunk Batman. That'd be amazing.
so
Batman.
that's Jessica Jones. and so
she's
like
DUI Supergirl.
So with Daredevil, so it's kind of like the new 52 with DC, kind of sidetracking real quick. Like how Daredevil has been the superhero for a while compared to everybody else. And like he sees all these other people come in. He's just like, do I really want to deal with these guys? Because they don't fully know what they're doing. Like, you're just a wall, you're just a drunk, and you're just some dumb kid, like with a glowy hand and
A
money.
strong drunk should be scary.
But like he still is, they get brought together. And next.
It's a point you brought up. You were particularly happy that somebody in the story actually died,
Yeah.
and let's hope that they stayed dead.
It was Stick, which I guess everyone in the room glad they died, but I kind of miss him because he's funny. I like Stick.
I feel like we were supposed to care that he died, but we really didn't because they just pushed the fact that he was too much of a
I just
dick.
thought the funny guy died. That's all.
I think he just wanted
the
one of
comic
his
relief
hugs.
died.
Yeah.
I think he just wanted a hug for him, so that's why you're sad he's dead.
So do you?
Hug that nub, dude. Hug
Yeah.
that nub.
So for better or worse, Stick's gone, and so is the leader of the hand.
Sticky.
What's her name? Sticky.
Alexandra
Yes.
is
Yeah.
technically dead, although
Technically.
Scott has some conspiracy theories
Okay.
of the fact that she's not dead, and she may have used Elektra to fake her death just to sort of get out of the hand game.
no, because she got decapitated.
That's true.
Oh, she did. Yes, that's right. After stabbing her, then
So
yeah.
yeah, we're totally jumping forward, beeps. But yeah, so the fact that they did show people dying
There was some stakes.
was great.
Yeah.
Actually, we also Mukuro as well was decapitated, so he's gone out of the
Oh
story.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Finally.
See,
And White
wasn't a side
What-
character as
what'd you
everybody.
call
Yeah.
White hat.
Mushy, mushy.
Mushy
Hey, Mushy Mushy's dead. Hey, Mushy Mushy. Mushy Mushy.
Yeah, so like there was a couple fingers of the hand that got decapitated, and Stick died as well. So it was great because those people, the fingers of the hand, they were immortal, but they still could get hurt, and that's they straight up Highlandered the shit out of these people. It was like there can be only one, whack, cutting the heads off. Sadly, there was no queen in the background.
Right.
Here we are, born to be kings. That's all I'm gonna say because we could probably get sued if we did it.
We're hoping that Madame Gao, they made it seem like she died, but we're all pretty sure that she's not. She's that,
she ninja vanished.
yeah, she's that slimy character that always gets out of the end.
Almost crane mothered, and then there was like the airbending thing that Iron Fist did, and then she went back and was like, "Oh no!" And
Oh no, Mrs. Gal,
And
Mrs.
just-
Gal, gonna bail out.
I I feel like he did
song.
like some kind of iron. I feel like he did some kind of like physical.
Next time, Denny. Next time.
I'll get you.
I feel like he did some kind of like physical Iron Fist brown note to her, and that's why.
You guys can't be talking to about a 70 or 80-year-old woman like
Getting brown note?
brown notes.
Why not? It's 2017.
You know what's
Equal
sad?
opportunities, apparently.
Yeah.
Even though I was starting to rewatch all the other Netflix shows, for some reason I thought Madame Gao was blind. Like,
Yeah, I don't know where you got that.
Trying to.
I thought in the Daredevil shows she was blind, but
She
then
blinded all of her followers, the people who worked in the factory. but I
right,
don't
and so
think she was actually
that's what
blind.
kind of confused me. It was
Okay.
like, oh, that's right. She did constantly look at Fisk and Wesley.
Okay.
One of the other good things that I think we are all in agreement about here is that Sigourney Weaver was great as a villain.
She's
Yes.
good.
Immortal Ripley was awesome.
She took down some fools. She looked banging in that Snuggie blanket that she wore at the
It was
beginning.
made out of her cat from
That-
the Alien movies.
The hand snuggie. Snuggie of the hand. Get yours
Made
now.
out of Bishop's skin.
Yeah.
Bishop's skin. Oh, jeez. A little bit of mute.
Was it Inside Out? Is that what
Yeah,
it was?
it was
Anyway.
inside out.
Patchwork of her
It's
love
called
life.
recycling.
She was pretty good. She was super, she
I almost wish there was more of her, actually.
yes, she was very humanizing. Like, she wasted all the hand goo bringing Elektra back.
Gross.
The black liquid.
Yeah,
She wasn't gonna let Uncle Sticky have
Actually,
it.
oh, they called it the substance.
yeah, the
Something even
substance.
worse. Like not stick, but like
Whatever.
adhesives.
Like-
Why they couldn't call it dragon blood or something.
Right.
That's what it was by the end of the show.
Let's quickly get into a quick thing that slightly irritates me with the Netflix shows. They can't just name things for what they are. They can't. It's always the Avengers thing, the alien
the
attack on New
incident?
York.
The
It's the incident.
Okay.
It was an alien attack. It was an alien attack. Why can't it be like, oh yeah, when the Avengers first happened and the aliens attacked?
Or the Battle of New York.
or the
which
Battle
I
of
believe
New
is
York.
what they called it in the movies.
Yeah, but it's the incident. It's the substance.
I guess they're afraid like if they call it what it is, it sounds too cornbally. So you have to try to like mute what real like people would call it, like in society and in politics. It's the incident.
Look,
They don't wanna
man.
say an alien attack.
Look,
The
man,
incident
Dragon
horizon.
Bones are holding up New York.
They're gonna call him the Geico Gecko, like what he
Yeah.
said. The Gecko
The
Gecko.
Geico
The
Gecko.
Geico
trapped up in
goo.
building.
The insurance
Geico
gecko.
goo.
The
Gonna
Geico
save
goo.
5%.
There we go.
Oh.
It's kinetic. One of these sad but cool things to see was the loss of Misty Knight's arm. So a lot of people
Yes,
are going,
that's a great thing.
yeah, that's so terrible. No, it's cool because we all know in the comic books that Misty has this sort
Easter
of bionic
egg!
arm. Yeah, this is also an Easter egg.
She got a
I always forget the name of the story that is with Misty Knight and Colleen Wing. The Daughters of the
They're
Dragon.
the Daughters of the Dragon.
Right. They have their own series, and they later adopt the Heroes for Hire name as well.
Misty Knight is also in one of the versions of the Defenders.
Yes. And in those versions, Misty Knight has this bionic arm, which we believe is made by Stark Industries.
I have no idea. who made
Yeah.
it.
So it's kind of cool to see that they may go that route or are intending to go that route in the show. So that's, while tragic, very cool to see like her transitioning to that character. Although I did find it funny that in the last series she basically tried to quit being a cop, but then in this series was a cop again.
Anyway, it's going to be an interesting kind of. I hope they don't brush over the plot point of where Misty Arms, Misty Knight's Skywalker arm is going to come from.
It's a lot
You
of
just,
jumbled
yeah,
words.
you
Misting
just
that
tied
right now.
together a bunch of franchises.
That's right, dude. It's all connected.
Now I Misty my arm. One Night in the Dragon. I
It's
don't know why I
it's
said
it's
that.
all connected because it's all under Disney.
Disney.
Hot. He's dead though. It seems like a gross place to be.
Alien.
The mouse doesn't have genitals.
Anyway,
Robin Williams.
One of the, I think we're all appreciative of the fact that there was no giant doomsday tower into the sky that was going to end the world.
yes.
No beams.
Yes.
No
Yeah,
beams,
that
huh?
was that's the general MacGuffin for every film these days is that some asshole stands there building a tower to the sky, and that's
No
So-
no light agra was
In-
happening in the movie.
In recent years, was all referred to the Avengers film? Is that what they're referring to, or is there like an earlier movie people referred to?
Okay, so
I know
Technically,
Ghostbusters-
Transformers.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Avengers, right?
They did
The light that opens up the portal in the sky and all the aliens come through.
The first Transformers.
Transformers.
X-Men, Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah. X-Men Apocalypse.
Yeah, same thing.
Teenage
Magneto
Mutant
stands
Ninja
there for 2
Turtles.
hours building this thing.
One of
Another
the-
one, the Turtles and fucking Transformers.
One of the films of the second Spider-Man reboot with the lizard, I think.
Yes.
That's
yes.
the first one. Was there? Yeah, there
Yeah,
was.
Lizard tried to build the biological weapon that was
Make
going to turn
everyone
everybody.
lizards.
You get the point.
Too much light beaming
The other
into
thing,
the sky.
the final and last cool note that we all kind of chuckled about were the needle drops of the various hip hop songs. And Justin will have to give you background on the songs that were dropped because I actually don't know all the titles.
Yeah, I don't
I got a
remember
needle
the
drop
title.
on this for you too.
I don't remember the title, but I love the sheer fact that Marvel and Run the Jewels have just this beautiful relationship. There's been a lot of hip hop ode covers, like throughout the Marvel comic books, and there's been a lot of Run the Jewels, which is LP and Killer Mike. They're for non-hip hop heads. The most famous song that's being used is Legend Has It is the name, I think. That's the song that's used in the Black Panther trailer.
Yes.
You know, step into the spotlight.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
I'm glad you're
But then-
brave enough to take that on.
Hey, man.
I applaud you.
Hey
sir.
man, I'm kind of an idiot, and but that song is such a dope jam. And then they had an awesome when Cage gets out of prison and he's on the bus. There's that not Maxwell. Oh man, whatever, that super sexy song that's being played right before he gets his coffee from Rosario Dawson from
That's
Claire.
true. Yep.
Corey
Uh,
Bangs there.
Hey, you're done,
Yeah,
yeah.
6 degrees of separation with Rosario Dawson.
Oh yeah, but then like the final fight scene, how they just busted out Wu-Tang's Protection Neck. That there's even a Spider-Man quote in it is so good. I just loved it, and I was just cracking up, and I rewound that scene so many times. That was also the best part of the fight scene.
That's how they won, because the new kids brought their crazy music, scaring the old folks that were the hand. That's why they won.
What?
They won with the power of hip
That
hop.
Wu-Tang song's like from '96.
Still, they
Hey,
didn't sure what they
contextually, it's still very new music to them.
Damn
Yes.
hipsters
It's like, oh, you damn kids, your music, we're losing
coming in
now.
here with your wax, playing
Anyway,
your jams.
inevitably, we get into the next topic, which is what went horribly wrong.
Luke was the only one that dropped the hammer.
You were mad that there was no love for
Did you
Matt.
have something
or
else? I
Danny.
thought that's where we were going.
He wanted to
Horribly
see
wrong.
Danny get laid. My
Maybe that would have turned him into a man.
Now you're a man.
Jessica Jones just walked around the corner. Come over here, sock cucker.
Oh, come on!
You get so raunchy with them, dude.
the biggest
It's a woman.
the biggest problem that I have with this series is the filmmaking. I was literally screaming at the TV about the shaky camera during the fight scenes, the editing, the just sort of art house attempt at artsy scenes that went way too far and served no purpose. Yeah. What do I mean? What am I talking about? Well, obviously the most apparent thing was the way a lot of the fight sequences were done. Now, the scene that happens in the main building in the beginning in episode 3 is actually done fairly well. But the fight scene in episode 6, where each of the members come in contact with the remaining hen members and fight it out, was just almost unwatchable for me. And it may be apparent, me and Justin were talking about the time constraints that this show seemed to have had since it had a fixed release date, that maybe they just didn't have time to create more intricate fight sequences for this, and that's why those scenes may feel a little bit rushed and disjointed, which is sad because I think it it sort of takes away from the kind of rivalries that we should have seen for some of these characters. And
Production is
building
rich
tension.
with such excuses.
Yeah.
See, and this is where we can slightly differ because I liked some of the filming. Like the first couple episodes, I think had some of the strongest filming. Like what we were talking about. So the first, pretty much the first 2 episodes was pretty much building up where all the characters were at a certain time. So it very much felt like once it was Jessica Jones showing, it's like, oh, this looks like it was ripped straight from her show. So it felt like, it looked like it was filmed and felt like her show. When it was Danny Rand's stuff, it looked like kind of Iron Fisty. Especially the Luke Cage stuff seemed to be the most stylized, which had kind of like this weird kind of hip hop music video feel to it, where it had some of the most like lenses, all the most different like kind of like changes within its stuff. So it had that weird kind of like 90s hip hop.
Well, you're talking about the
it.
varying flavors and textures that they had for the individual characters, which I would agree was actually well done. But I mean, like literally the opening fight sequence between Danny and Elektra, I was already like, really? Please don't do this throughout the entire series, because that scene, like I understand that they wanted to make that scene disorienting, like they were in a maze, but it was terrible.
Well, they
You know
kept
what I mean?
it up, unfortunately,
Right.
for a lot of other
It's
scenes.
like if you really wanted to grab the audience attention early on in the film, like you failed. Like that just did not work for me.
Series. You keep calling it a film.
I'm talking about the film work. I refer to TV.
Cinematography?
Yeah. Well, no, because that would mainly detail what happens with the camera. What I have a problem with wasn't just the camera work. It was the blocking, it was the editing, and it was the cinematography. All 3 of those things sort
Let's
of
just say
culminate
the
together to
visuals.
make.
It's getting very technical. Sorry.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say the visuals.
Well, it's because like I'm into the art of filmmaking, and I'm referring to this very specific area which really bothered me.
You thought it looked Picasso.
It looked like somebody trying to imitate what another well-known artist had done and failed to do it.
I'm waiting. Who's that?
But see, that's why I pointed out also that they kind of started off, in my opinion. I said earlier before we were even on camera, I guess I should say, but that it was just kind of odd that they started with, in my personal opinion, the kind of the weaker link of the chain
I agree.
to start this series, and that kind of came with it. Unfortunately, is that was the way they filmed that as well.
Which
So,
brings me immediately to our next point of what went wrong and what we weren't happy with, which was inevitably Danny. Now, at this point, I actually, unlike some people, I don't blame Finn Jones for what's represented with this character. It's not that I don't think he can carry the fight sequences. My problem with it is how they're writing this character. They're not utilizing him in a way that would really suit the character.
They're getting there, in my opinion.
It's
Like,
it's an improvement over.
It's
over
definitely improvement. Kind of like what I said at the beginning of the show on things that I liked. I liked that Danny Rand and Iron Fist was utilized a lot better than how he was utilized in his own show. So it felt like this was almost like don't worry about that old show. Now this is how Iron Fist is going to be. Now, I want the costume. It's super simple. I don't understand how they don't do the costume.
I don't either.
They can easily just do even a mix of the new version of the costume, which is just a slight rendition of the Bruce Lee jumpsuit, but it's green and it has, it's opened up so you see the tattoo, and then he just has, a bandana over his face.
I really think that the mask. If they just did the mask, that would be close enough. I would be like, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
because they showed that they could do that mask and it looked fine in that old-timey footage.
Right.
And it's like, and also what's cool, and I hope this happens in the next Iron Fist season, is that he does meet up with one of the old Iron Fists, so he gets both fists. Because right now he only has the power of one fist. So even though he is the immortal Iron Fist, he's not at 100%.
You think maybe the mask will be something handed down to him from the last Iron Fist? Maybe that'll be what we see.
Maybe, but it's kind of alluded that Alexandra killed that guy.
Really? When was that?
There was a throwaway line she had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a quick little throwaway
So
line.
I
but
shared
she's-
Iron Fist before.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, well,
Um,
Gao even says, you're not the first. I've seen other Iron Fists. It almost seems like she was one.
Huh?
Yeah, that's the sense that I get sometimes.
Iron Fist.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like she was one, which is why her powers are sort of similar. But she no longer is or became corrupted.
well, if she's the Mother Crane has dealt with the Iron Fists in the past because as it's kind of been said, like the Hand and the Warriors of Kunlun, they've had interminglings.
Well, then
Before.
wasn't it the story like they were part of the Kunlun sect, but they just segmented themselves?
they were part of the Order of Crane Mother.
Yeah, if I remember right. But if they ever get into the Matt Fraction Immortal Iron Fist series, then they kind of stole some things from it for the first season of Iron Fist. But if they really get into kind of the Tournament of Champions or whatever it's called, where they'll talk about some of that stuff, it'll show all these different like spiritual sects that's like, hey, we're gonna just show you who's the best in each of our fighters, and that's kind of how they have the interminglings as well.
You have any more thoughts on Danny?
Kind of getting back to the point. Do you guys think they had a lack of masks and suits because there was some part of the production was like we need to see more of the actor's face?
That's how they get paid. But again, it's still, we have the Daredevil costume. Like Luke Cage never had one. Neither did Jessica Jones. Even when she was Jewel or whatever, she just had a pink wig.
But there were some allusions to Cage's sort of appearance. Like in the beginning, I think it's like episode 2 or 3, he actually has the yellow shirt.
Well, yeah,
Which
he
is
has the
the
yellow
classic
shirt. The illusion also is the hoodie with the yellow
Yeah.
inside the hood. And, like Luke Cage, he, out of all the superheroes, he's really had the least amount of like costume changes throughout the year.
Yeah.
They had the one that they showed, the tease where he's wearing the blouse and the chains and the tiara. And then he had some quick weird like 90s thing where he wore a red shirt and like a weird leather jacket
And
with
chains.
like
I remember that.
Yeah.
and then now where he's just wearing clothes.
Right.
The thing I think that made Danny's transition from where he was in his series to this one difficult and trying to figure out where he's supposed to go is the fact that they kind of half-and-halved him. They started off with him kind of going more of like a leadership role of this is what we should be doing, this is where we should go. And then they turned him into Danny Tantrum for the second half.
I'm
And
glad
it-
you got there.
Yeah, and it finally it confused what he was trying to do.
Yeah,
Instead of him being like, this is what we should go with, he suddenly became, woo!
Yeah, I'm kind of upset with the way that basically once Danny becomes emotional, he's no good to anybody.
Yeah, I like the fact with him. What worked was that to me he was no longer like how he was in his season. Like, I'm Danny Rand. I'm the Immortal Iron Fist. It's like, shut up, kid. But now he sees how much shit has really gotten real, to where it's like, oh, I can't be as jovial. But then when he finally finds people that have kind of the same goal, oh, you guys are trying to find the Hand too? Yeah, dude, let's team up. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Like.
Remember, I'm the Iron Fist.
Yeah,
But yeah, remember.
Yeah.
You what?
because I'm Danny Rand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You punched him, what?
Yeah, that's like that was also one of my problems is I hated the reluctance of the characters to become a team. You would think that they would all, especially someone like Murdoch, would be relieved to be with a group of other people where they could be like, yes, I fight crime. I mean, it's cool to meet other people who are trying to do the same thing, and I don't have to be secretive and I don't have to lie about who I am because you guys get it, right? Or like Jessica, who's like an outcast. I mean, obviously she likes isolation, but you would think there would be some part of them that's just like, oh, I don't feel so weird anymore.
Well, in both of their cases, and yeah, I wish there was one TV series that had a group of heroes that just go, oh yeah, we're all the same. Yep, all right, cool, let's do this. Everyone always has to bicker, and that bugs me. It's a dick measuring contest and this and this.
Yeah.
But like both Matt Murdock and Jessica Jones, their mentality is like anybody who they get close to dies or gets hurt, and they don't want anyone like that. Granted, when you have someone like, oh, I don't know, Luke Cage, it's
Right.
like, oh, you can totally fend for yourself.
Right.
All right, I'll team up with you. There ain't nothing to worry about. But Luke Cage is even like, this is your guys' problem. I'm just trying to find where this kid is.
Lottery tickets.
Lotto tickets.
A lot of tickets, man.
Yeah. So I mean, like that's
Coffee and lotto tickets.
yeah, and that's what happened. Like the thing that I was afraid of, and even predicted the number, happened. Like 6 episodes of them bickering before they were finally like, well, I guess we should be a team. And I'm kind of disappointed that they went that far with it.
Sorry, it's my last base opinion on Danny Rand. I don't like the actor who plays him. They should have got someone better and who was trained beforehand to be a better martial artist than him. But for whatever reason, the production and his previous work in like Game of Thrones, I believe, they just like, let's get this guy. Whatever.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there was a heartthrob
Sorry, no
factor.
offense.
Yeah, I think there was a heartthrob factor, and he was kind of like a popular person at the time, and they decided to go with that. But my feeling now is just like, well, he's Danny Rand. We're here. Let's just get used to it. You know what I mean? And
See if we can make this work.
yeah. It's kind of like just make and do with the relationship. This is no fun. But I'm willing to give him a chance. Like I said, he seemed to have improved over what they did in the original show. I think he was doing better in some of the fight sequences, and I just blame the filmmaking for what happened and not really him.
I just hope the production shoves that guy in a room with Jet Li, Jackie Chan, and Donnie Yen and be like,
Yeah.
look, kid, this is what you're supposed to do.
I definitely
We're
think
going to break you.
yeah, I definitely wish that they were doing more of what they did with Luke Cage, which is they reverted back to that blaxploitation film era and went, how do we mix these flavors in with what we're doing? And I feel like they didn't do enough of that with Iron Fist and in this show in terms of making him like he's a kung fu character. Look at kung fu films and start using those elements to tell his story. They're not doing that. They tried. They got close when in Iron Fist they had the whole fighting tournament where he fought his way through those people for a challenge, but that lasted like 1 episode, and they just didn't drive it home the way they could have.
And whether you guys kind of agree with it or not, I have a feeling they'll do that within the next season of Iron Fist, because now we have all of his backstory out of the way.
Right.
It's kind of like one of those things where it's like, this is an unnecessary evil. Like, and so, but within that, I kind of like how certain parts seemed rushed, and it all depends on who the showrunner is. And Scott Buck was the showrunner of Iron Fist. And I strongly believe, especially now with what I'm hearing with the whole Inhumans thing, that they just wanted it rushed, they wanted it made cheap, and this and that. Scott Buck was hired to just get the thing made. Like, there was no full, thought about it.
Yeah, well, we feel like Finn's casting was last minute. The show obviously was pushed quickly, and they're not spending the time.
But yeah, like I mean, and it does suck, and kind of how I feel about like all of the things that Marvel's been doing. They want to get you the grounded characters first, to make you first believe in the narrative and believe in the world that they're building, to then have like the crazy, fantastical things. Now, moving forward, Punisher is going to be a 13-episode season.
Yes.
So
Really?
like it.
I like
I hope they can fill out 13 episodes, because it still seems that like none of the Netflix shows needed to be 13 episodes, and I have a feeling that within this Punisher show, what's going to happen, especially from showing the trailer, which, that was one thing we forgot to say what was good about it. They didn't have the Punisher in it. They didn't shoehorn him into the series, which was great. He's off hammering concrete floors like John Wick, making grunty noises.
Yeah, I was
Count-
kind of like, why
Counting
did they
counting
do
how
that?
many dogs of his they killed.
Yeah, dude,
Wow,
and
here we go.
like so.
Here we
So like,
go.
I feel like half of that series, unless it's only going to be like 2 episodes,
Yeah.
is going to all be based on his backstory. Which I still kind of, it's like, we got what his backstory was. We don't need to see the backstory. Just have him go mobbing down mobsters.
Well, I think they're gonna want to drive home the point that he was a family man. You know what I mean? Like this. That's the most important thing about that character is what's taken from him, and
But we'll
that's
get there
what.
once that series comes out.
Yeah.
Let's get back to Defenders.
Yeah. Let's get back to the Defenders.
Let's get back to Defenders.
We'll have a whole other episode about the Punisher trailer because it's something that's important to me. We'll talk about this later.
Okay.
The last thing that
Since you're to wrap up the Danny Tantrum thing, I think they did a good job of not giving him the Peter Parker treatment where they had to give him like the Uncle Ben
Oh,
thing
yeah.
over and over and over and over again.
Oh,
And
seeing
even
his
in the
mom fly out
Defenders-
the.
What happened?
Seeing his
Oh
mom
no,
fly.
Alexandra!
Yeah. See his mom fly out the helicopter.
Oh, I
Just
like
have
that
that on
part.
repeat. Daddy, daddy, daddy.
The more I watched that, the more I started laughing. It's like,
is so wrong.
But now we've had that, and they didn't try to keep coming back to it, which is good.
Yeah.
So now you can
You're waiting for
can
somebody to
take
be
the
like,
opportunity to move forward with him becoming more of a kung fu sided person.
Right.
So they can go forward with that. They didn't try to regress.
it's a good
him
thing
back
they
to
didn't
that.
have a scene with Luke going, yes, Danny, you know your mom died in a plane crash.
Yeah.
Just tell me about the dragon again.
Yeah.
Come on, Danny Tantrum, let's go.
you keep showing me the footage over and over again. It's like, I know it's mean, but I just stopped caring, bro.
The last
So the
thing,
next thing.
the last terrible point, the last thing that went wrong in the show is a weak sense of the villains and the threat that they presented. I feel like, like what we saw of Nobu in Daredevil was like he was a more threatening character than any of these characters, these fingers of the hand. You know what I mean? It's like Mukuro was no big deal. Danny could have walked through him apparently. This guy that was Nobu's boss, unfortunately I can't remember the name of the character, but the hunter that represented the Japanese branch was like,
Say Mushu earlier?
yeah.
No,
He was
Mushi
like-
Mushi was the dude
Was
from
Mukuro.
was Iron Fist.
Mushy, mushy.
Yeah.
Okay.
The guy from Brazil. The character from Japan really seemed to pose no real threat to anybody. I mean, in one of the scenes, Daredevil kicked him off a balcony. You know what I mean? Like that was the end of it.
Exactly how I felt when he's like running on the buildings and he took out his weapons. Like the time, I'm like, really?
Really?
That the stick
Yeah.
against
you're
the
gonna
unbreakable
fight,
man?
Yeah, you're gonna fight a dude with unbreakable skin, and you've got a stick. That's good.
It was a very big letdown because when they were introduced, you're like, these guys seem pretty cool. Like,
Yeah,
they're pretty
they have
badass.
to be
And
the
then you're like,
badass.
what the fuck?
And then it
the
was just nothing.
anti-defenders, the offenders.
Right.
This guy's so dope. He's gonna refuse to learn English.
Yeah.
Right. The white hat. Again, I
Yeah,
can't
the
remember
Haitian
yeah.
pimp.
No, it's like in one scene, Stick basically emphasizes what a badass this guy is, and he says, "Oh, well, he's gonna do this move that's gonna slow your heart until you die." And then what happened? Right? He shows up.
Did he even do that at all?
No, that's my point. He shows up. He basically lures Luke Cage out to get hit by a truck, and then the next time we see him, he's beaten and tied up. Right? So that was like, okay, there's a bullshit missed opportunity. We really should have seen the fight sequence between those two characters.
I was giving them more credit than they actually showed for. I thought, oh, it's a Saturday morning cartoon plot. They got Luke Cage behind the scenes. They put him in some like mind control mojo, and they're gonna pretend that they have Mushi Bushi all tied up, and Mushi Boy's gonna be like, "Lol, J.K. Luke Cage is on my side." He's
You've
gonna
now
beat you
applied that
guys
name
up."
to a third character.
Right.
He just shows up in a free candy van, and he's got the other guy in the back. And you're like, what
Where
happened
did he
to
get the van?
Right. How did he get free? Did
Yeah,
he like
so that
draw a
was
little circle in the bottom of the van and fall through it like
Right.
a cartoon or what?